One of the worst wars of our time, a bloody conflict in Africa that's ground on, largely ignored by the world for the past 2 decades, now takes an important step towards peace. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, 5 million people have been killed, hundreds of thousands have been forced from their homes, and there's been an epidemic of rape. But today there was a development few thought they would ever see. The rebel group M23 that's been fighting the government says that it'll end its insurgency and lay down its weapons. This conflict is known as Africa's First World War. The DRC is rich in minerals. Many of them even turn up in the devices we hold in our hands, our cell phones. Today's announcement came soon after a crushing UN-backed offensive by government forces in the eastern area of the country. When M23 made its boldest move last year, taking over Goma, the main city in the east, the world woke up. This at a time when the United States is also refocusing its anti-terror fight onto Africa. The UN approved a new heavily armed mission to fight the M23 rebels, and the US named a high-profile envoy, former Senator Russ Feingold. He joined me earlier from South Africa as news broke of the potential end of this rebellion. Senator Feingold, thank you for joining me from South Africa.
It's a pleasure.
Can you tell me whether this is for real? Have the M23 not just announced an end to hostilities, but actually verifiably called an end to their rebellion?
This is a hopeful moment. You always have to be sure and verify in a situation such as all the problems in the eastern part of Congo. But what has happened here is not simply the M23 rebellion saying that they're going to have a ceasefire or cease for a while. They have formally renounced their rebellion. And this is the first critical step in concluding what has been called the Kampala talks. The Kampala talks were called by President Museveni of Uganda last December. It's been very difficult to get them resolved. But now we have M23 saying they're stopping their rebellion. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has responded appropriately. So we are optimistic there can be a signing of the arrangements to make this possible in the next few days. And this is a hopeful first step toward peace and prosperity in this region.
So do you think then that this could mean an end to 2 decades of conflict in the DRC? I mean, 800,000 people have had to flee their homes in this fighting. Millions have been killed over, many, many years. Is this the end of that, do you think?
It would be a great oversimplification to call this important step the end of all that. Some 5 to 6 million people have died in this conflict over the last 20 years. There are dozens of armed groups involved. There are complex issues involving the countries in the region. We need a broader political dialogue to resolve that. But this step is important, and it creates the momentum so we can get on to the fundamental issues that have led to, frankly, what is one of the worst tragedies that has occurred in the last 60 years. So no one should mistake this as the final solution to this problem. It's a positive first step.
One of the reasons the M23, launched this war was because they perceived the previous agreement with the government to have been flawed. At least that's what many say, that they, signed an agreement with the government in 2009 and that was broken by the government. Are there pitfalls? Is there an assurance? Are there actual protocols in place this time to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, there was no justification for any group, whatever the agreement was in 2009, to start an armed rebellion, illegal rebellion. Having said that, a lot of those agreements there were in secret. This is a transparent process. I hope the agreement and believe the agreement will provide that people who were part of the rebellion but did not commit wars against war crimes or crimes against humanity, that they will have a chance to, on a case-by-case basis, individually renounce rebellion as individuals. So the vast majority would be allowed to reintegrate into Congolese life, to have a living and to have political rights. However, there is a group of individuals, a smaller group, who have committed war crimes and crimes against humanity, who cannot be reintegrated, who cannot be granted amnesty as they were in the past. That is something that is intolerable not only to the Congo, but to the international community, and particularly to the United States, which rejects that kind of approach. That is a big difference from the 2009 agreement that gave more of a blanket amnesty.
Now, a lot of people also point to the fact that back then the Congolese president, Kabila, had talked about sending the biggest offenders, and particularly the leader of the M23, to the ICC, General Bosco Ntaganda. He is there now, but they believe that that idea of holding them accountable, as you call, actually spurred the latest round. Do you worry that that might happen again?
There has to be accountability for those who committed crimes against humanity and war crimes. That accountability could in some cases occur in front of the ICC, but it doesn't have to. In fact, my expectation is that most of the accountability will be through the Democratic Republic of Congo's justice system. And the international community is to assist them in any way we can to make sure they have the right techniques, whether it be mixed courts or commissions of inquiry, to make that possible. So the ICC has played a role in situations like this in the past, but by no means is the only show, and the Democratic Republic of Congo is going to reassert not only its sovereignty over all its territory, but also its ability to properly and fairly administer justice, accountability, and punishment for those who have committed such crimes.
Senator, a key ally of the United States, Rwanda, the president there, Paul Kagame, has over and again denied that he was behind M23, that he backed M23, that he fueled their rebellion. He's denied it, although many people have accused him of doing it. He's also said this about what needs to happen in the future. Let me play it for you.
What the President of the United States was saying, or others, is about finding a solution to the problems that are complex. It's not a simple complex. It's not just an issue of M23 or one other problem. It's a number of problems that are together that we need to sort out and move on.
So what he's saying is that it goes way beyond M23. What can you say to that? What can the United States do to try to help solve issues there beyond M23? And are other African governments, African countries on board with what's been declared today?
Not only is Rwanda a friend and ally of the United States of America, President Paul Kagame's statement that you just made is absolutely correct when he says there is far more to this problem than just the M23. There are root causes of this dispute that has led to so much tragedy in the last 20 years that cannot be addressed through the Kampala talks that are concluding at this point. We need, in the context of the framework agreement, under the leadership of Mary Robinson, the special envoy from the United Nations, under the leadership of the African Union, a broader political dialogue, in my view, perhaps a mediated dialogue, where these kinds of issues can be addressed, as President Kagame suggests, with the countries involved at the table. So Rwanda, Uganda, Congo, perhaps other countries, actually at the table of serious negotiations of the type that have occurred in the past to resolve very difficult international problems. So that is correct. That's why I said at the top of the interview, this is only the first step. A broader dialogue is essential. Otherwise, we're going to keep seeing this again.
And Senator, finally, what's in it for the United States? Why are you there helping to resolve this issue?
I've been asked to do this by the leadership of President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry, because it is their judgment, and I know this because we all serve together in the Foreign Relations Committee, that Africa is a very important place for the United States to have good relationships with. We believe that the tragedy in the Eastern Congo is one of the worst that's occurred, and we have a moral responsibility to address it. But it goes beyond that. The President and Secretary of State have a positive vision for this region, that if we can get this conflict over and have the countries in that region work together, the enormous resources of that region can, for the first time, be for the people of that region, not for those who want to exploit those resources. The United States believes this is important for peace and prosperity, and we are all over the world trying to make sure that places that are ungovernable or do not have proper governance are fixed, because people, negative actors, exploit places. As we've seen in other places around Africa and around the world, those are the places that people that want to do us harm exploit. So it's in the national security interests of the United States, as well as a moral obligation that both the President and the Secretary of State have shown leadership on, and that's why I was pleased to take on this assignment at their request.
Senator Feingold, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.